everyone, and welcome to Beginnings, the show that asks, where do creative people come from? My name is Andy. I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in Los Angeles, California. How is everyone doing this week? I guess this week, everything's still fairly awful, but one slight ray of hope was Zoran Mamdani won the New York mayoral primary. So that's, hey, look, every little bit of good news you have to hold on to. And I'm not even a big electoralism kind of guy. I'm like, yeah, it's good to have decent people on the inside, but the system is so fucked up that there's a good chance that they won't be able to enact a lot of good things. There's also a good chance they'll be corrupted by the system, so, I feel like most of the change is going to come from people on the outside pressuring the people on the inside to do something that isn't evil. But it's good to have a decent person on the inside to help along, assuming that they stay decent. I'll tell you what is more than decent, why that is today's episode. Today, I'm talking to Kelly Sue DeConnick. And if you don't know who Kelly Sue is, I'm going to read you her bio right now. Born in Columbus, Ohio, Eisner Award-winning comics writer Kelly Sue DeConnick moved around a lot as a child and eventually got into comics professionally through adapting translations of manga. Since the mid-aughts, she has jumped between creator-owned work for publishers like Image, such as Pretty Deadly and Bitch Planet, and work for hire at Marvel and DC, including a defining run on Captain Marvel. Most recently, she created FML for Dark Horse. It returns this July and is easily one of the best comics in the last year. I've always liked Kelly Sue's work. I think maybe the first thing I've read of hers was Pretty Deadly. I'm not sure exactly. But FML blew me away. I felt seen by it. And to me, it is the definitive comic that kind of captures what it's like parenting. And look, obviously I'm not a parent, but seeing it through the eyes of my friends and loved ones who have children, it captures something about parenting in post-2020 that hit me, a non-parent, hard. This is a very lovely talk. We get into Kelly Sue's theater background, a bunch of other stuff, moving around a lot. We talk about her dad. Very interesting. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was an absolute delight to talk to Kelly Sue. Coming up on the show, I took a break from recording new episodes so I could work on some writing stuff, but I just started to record some new ones again. Coming up next week, we got Daniel Littleton from Ida, talk about his punk days in the 1980s outside of DC. And I just talked to Selwyn Seyfu Hines. If you don't know who that is, he's a writer. He's former editor-in-chief of Source Magazine. He is now a TV writer and showrunner, and he created a new show called Washington Black, which is going to debut on Hulu soon. And that was a very fantastic talk. So stay tuned for those. But for now, let's talk to Kelly Sue. I'm psychotic when it comes to the need to control stuff. Mm-hmm. So when we do have, we have a booker, my wife and I have another podcast, we have a booker for that. And it's taken a lot of willpower to just let her do her thing and not control.
Yeah.
Because every single thing, but then I'm also an extremely anxious person. I don't know if this resonates with you at all. I'm an extremely anxious person. And so I'll control every aspect of something myself, but then that means all the responsibility is on my back. So I'm constantly anxious that I'm fucking something up. I am doing something wrong. I mean, this all goes back to my childhood where it was like, you better get straight A's and you better do something positive with your life.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that resonates with you at all, or if that's just my own kind of mental illness.
I mean, the control freak part of it, I mean, with calendar stuff, I'm just not good at it. And I have, I've, it's such a cliche now, like, oh, I have ADHD and I'm time blind. And like, whatever. Maybe, whatever it is, I can't keep track of time. I can't. And I've proven myself to be incapable of it over years. Everything else, I am that sort of combination of arrogance and low self-esteem where I think I'm the only one who can do it properly, but I can't do all of it. Therefore, I'm a terrible loser.
Wait, hold on. Do you believe that, or that, like, is that belief in your head that you're saying that about yourself, or you're just like kind of being self-deprecating in the moment?
No, I'm aware of having I always tell, I don't teach a lot, but I tell writing students that anything that you have conflicting opinions on or mixed feelings about is fertile ground for fiction. And I think I kind of live in that space because I do have both a very high opinion of myself and a very low opinion of myself simultaneously. And
that's familiar. That checks out.
They're both completely accurate, just depending on they're both completely accurate and they're both entirely inaccurate, right?
You talking about living in this space where you are simultaneously, well, there's a thing. I'm not in 12-step programs, so I have many friends.
Piece of shit at the center of the universe.
Biggest piece of shit at the center of the universe. Exactly. They told me that phrase, and I'm just like, that resonates with me. That feels right. Where there's this, but I'm uncomfortable in gray areas. This is what I am curious about. Are you uncomfortable in between places, as opposed to just being, no, I'm confident in myself, period, or I am self-deprecating, period, or I dislike myself, or however far you want to go in that other direction, period?
I think the experience of middle age for me has been about embracing complexity and gray areas and in-betweens, quite honestly. So, yeah, I'm uncomfortable, but it also feels like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be,
So then when you were younger, we'll just step back a little bit. Did you need to inhabit areas of clarity? I guess that was such a weird way of saying it, but did you need certainty in things? Did you need, as opposed to like, I agree that like middle age in a certain sense for me has been dealing with I always knew there was complexity to existence, but I was always uncomfortable with it. And I was desperate for there to be certainty and binaries and it's either this or that. And if it's not, then then that's when the anxiety starts like pumping into my blood and then the sweat starts flying off my brow. Did you know about the complexity earlier? Is it just middle age that makes it apparent to you? Does that make any sense at all?
It does. I mean, I think my theory is, and this is my theory. Like, take that for what it's worth.
Please.
But my theory is that young people are the engines of our culture. And in order to act and accomplish the way young people need to act and accomplish to drive us forward, you have to simplify. So there is a utility to the kind of black and white thinking. But as we age, and I'm in my mid-50s now, so, it's not, referring to it as middle age is not performative. I'm actually being quite generous,
I know. Every year I get older, I'm just like, we're no longer in middle age. This is that, like, I mean, I would have to live it into my 90s at this point.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Yeah. so, I feel like we take on a different role, and it's not ours to be the engine anymore. It's ours to sort of sit back and consider and advise, and
yeah.
And I think that's an appropriate time for that complexity.
I see.
And so I don't know. It sort of makes sense to me that, I see my kids really want the comfort of, no, there are good people and there are bad people. Like, there really aren't. There are people. People do good things and bad things, but people are not good or bad. I get why it's easier to think that way, but let me suggest some of the problems that can follow from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a kind of security that comes from like, okay, I can sort this stuff very quickly, and that'll help me feel safe, and it'll help me make decisions and move forward. But the world doesn't work like that.
Yeah. That actually makes me think about how I was fighting this for a long time. I think I went maybe too far, but my dad would call me when I was younger. He was like, "Hey, you're very arrogant. You should like really kind of like curb that," because I would be certain about things,
right?
And I don't know if I've curbed it that much. Like, I think I swung too far in the other direction. Now I'm trying to go the other way. I'm like, no, I can be. Hey, I'm great. I can be somewhat positive about myself. But that does seem like a domain of youthfulness. I'm really stretching for. I'm really being linguistically strange as I'm talking to you. Domain.
I'm following you. That's what language is for, right? As long as I understand, we're cool. Yeah, no, I mean, there's certainly, well, I'm making my point, right? Because I won't, I'm qualifying everything.
Yeah,
but,
that's the thing. Then it becomes paralyzing a little bit because
a little bit.
And I'm trying to find, I guess I'm trying to figure out like, what can I be certain about, or what can I be relatively certain about so that I don't have to like sit here and say a thing, because I'll say something and then I'll be like, well, except for this thing, or except for this other thing, or I guess it's only, what I'm talking about is this one, maybe it's just anecdotal, it's this one case, and it's like, no, you can just say, it's okay to like state things, but you
sure
get
it is, but like it's also okay to feel like, yes, you are talented and you are special, and your voice is important, just as important as everyone else's.
Mm-hmm. But were you told that when you were younger?
No, I was told that I was special and unique. I was actually, I mean, I have lots to complain about my family, don't get me wrong, but I was an only child who was treated as though I was quite extraordinary.
Okay. Let's go back to that, because I read online that you grew up in different places, that you were your dad was in the military,
That's
the Air
correct.
Force.
Yes.
By the way, by the time you're a teenager, isn't Top Gun out? Is it cool at that point that he's in the Air Force with Tom Cruise portraying him? That's the first thing that I thought, where I was trying to figure out the timeline in my head.
Yeah. Well, so I was born in 1970. So Top Gun, I think, was in the 80s. So when I was in high school, I graduated high school in 88. But my dad was a civilian pilot after he retired, but he was not an Air Force pilot. He was a Russian linguist. So
wow.
Flew around in the back of airplanes listening to, he was mostly in a plane called an RC-135 that had a big dish on it, and they would catch signals and he would translate Russian. Just
like they were specifically trying to pick up chatter in terms of like espionage type stuff.
Yep. So he would go TDY to Alaska all the time.
Wow.
Because Sarah Palin can see Russia from her window.
Sure. Was that okay? So you grew up right in the middle of the machine then, in a certain sense. What I mean, the machine, like the Empire machine, like that's serious. That's like a step away from being like State Department or like CIA spook type stuff.
Yeah. But my dad was not an officer. So it wasn't, my dad isn't the archetype of a hot dog Air Force pilot that, you know, swagger in his step, twinkle in his eye. My dad is a big old nerd with really like not great social skills, to be honest with you.
Interesting.
And he was never, you know, he joined the Air Force on the tail end of the Vietnam War in 1971 so that he wouldn't get drafted into the Army. Mm-hmm. So he dropped out of college. So he was never an officer. So it wasn't like, it wasn't like we were, like my family didn't feel like we were like big fish in some kind of important something, you know. This was my dad's job. And he, you know, sometimes had a second job, like literally at McDonald's for a while. So like he would finish working on base or whatever for the day and then go to his evening shift at McDonald's. So
are you telling me the United States government doesn't take care of the people that work for it?
I know, it's weird, right?
Crazy.
I know. I also think there may have been some spending things there.
Interesting. Okay. When you say not great social skills, do you just mean typical, like someone born in the, I'm going to guess, late 40s, early 50s, somewhere around there, kind of just like, I'm a guy born at this time and I'm not supposed to learn how to communicate, that kind of stuff?
No, I think spectrum-y.
That was okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a clinician. I'm not in any position to diagnose him, but he's an odd bird, my dad. I love him very much. I was going to say, obviously, that's not obvious, but let me state for the record.
I'll say this, the way you're talking about him, I can tell.
Yeah,
so.
I do love him very much, but he's he's an odd guy. He's not good at reading social cues or human emotions at all. And he's very sweet, though. It's not like he's not
cold, right? That's what you seem to be saying. Like, it's not like he is,
Yeah, although, like, Matt and I have we call him Robot Dad. I'm just like, aw, Robot Dad. That's as good as Robot Dad can do, you know? But, yeah, so there's he's an interesting guy, but my mom and dad were a peculiar pair.
In what way?
Well, my parents are both still living, so I have to be mindful of, but she's like his opposite, we'll say.
Jovial.
Very people-oriented and a little bit anti-intellectual and... Like,
very specifically, I ain't gonna do no book learning. Like...
Yeah, like, you can't afford to go to college and it'll just take all the common sense out of you anyway. And...
Oh.
Yeah. And that kind of, like, I'm gonna do my own research, which involves...
Oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So
interesting. So yeah. Was it difficult to relate to your dad growing up? Like, did you understand, like now, like we have this kind of language that we can talk about where we can say like someone's on the spectrum and we can talk about different, like where on the spectrum and all these kinds of things. But in the 70s specifically and the 80s, there really doesn't seem to be that kind of vocabulary. Maybe
well, we had Mr. Spock. So that was how
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. There was some kind of like pop culture stereotype that you could point to, or archetype maybe is better.
Yeah. So it's just like, oh, Dad's a Vulcan. I get it. That makes perfect sense to me.
where did you fit in then between that? Because that your parents then like are two ends of a different kind of emotional spectrum.
Oh yeah. They're phenomenally different human beings. I guess somewhere in the middle. That's not a very enlightening answer to that question, but I don't think I'm very much like either of them. But what is the end of that sentence? I do recognize things I've either learned or inherited from them, but I don't see myself as especially like either one.
Is that on purpose? Did you purposely push against the way they were?
Probably. There are a lot of things from my upbringing that were not ideal. But I did have the one thing, even though it may have resulted in some, useful arrogance, although I think maybe that would have happened anyway. They did, my whole family, not just my parents, but everyone always treated me like I was very special. And I think that gave me a kind of inner core and confidence that has served me well over the years. I tend to be pretty fortunate in I'm not immune to being affected by other people's evaluations of me or my work, but I don't care to the degree that a lot of peers, and especially women, I think, of my age do, which I don't think is something inherent in me. I don't think it's something I was born with. I think it's something I'm fortunate enough to have been given as a child.
Yeah, what's that like? Because I will read a comment online. I don't seek them out, but I saw I accidentally clicked on a Reddit thread about an episode of the show that I do with my wife, and someone had said Andy's gotten a little too doomer lately. And I was just consumed for an entire day with both am I talking too much about the world? Is it, should I be talking, less about it? And just anger about what do you want me to do? I'm sorry, I'll be more positive about the government kidnapping people and sending them to a slave concentration camp in El Salvador. I'll find the silver lining in that. Is that what you want? So I can't see a single comment without kind of spinning out. And I've been doing this stuff for a long time. You think I would have built up some kind of armor. And I'm confident. This is why I ask you, because I'm also confident in my work. And I know that at least on the comedic side that I can be funny, and that on the writing side, I'm a good writer. So what is it like? Because I can't, period. What is that like?
Well, I think there's probably we're going to go back to let me very helpfully qualify fucking everything. But, I think that there's probably good and bad to it, right? Because ultimately my feeling about this stuff is, once I make the work, it exists separate from me, and people's interpretation of it or evaluation of it may or may not be what I intended. I want it to, Mike Doty used to talk about there being a kind of ideal of being a Emily Dickinson, where you could write the thing for a drawer. It didn't have to be received to be fulfilling. And I'm not sure that is an ideal. I don't think the work is complete until it's reached someone else and had some kind of effect.
Yeah, I agree.
But at the same time, I don't weight anybody's opinion as much as my own, which is that arrogance, right? So, you didn't get it? Well, maybe you should read it again. Or you're taking that message out of it. Is that there? I don't think it is. I think you're projecting. I wish you well on your journey, like, and sometimes they're right? Sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, this plot point, there's a stronger choice there. These fucking things are supposed to come out every 30 days. I'll do better next time, Like, yeah, so there's a, it's funny. There's also something that comes from, I think, being a woman on the internet, and especially like a woman who will like say that, hey, I think women get treated differently.
Right. That
will just like incense some folks. And I have so many years of personal attacks that when someone just critiques the work, I'm so thrilled that they're just critiquing the work that it's like, oh, great. Like, fantastic. Thanks for trying it. I understand it wasn't for you. I appreciate you picking it up. Like, great.
Right. I forgot the medium of comics has a lot of really progressive folks that are. Yeah. I mean, we got both, right? Right.
And,
well, yes, I know. But
yeah.
I would say maybe the some of the more retrograde readers like to complain a lot.
And, and when I am my best self, I understand that those are people who are coming at this from a place of fear. Mm-hmm. They are afraid of me. They are scared I am going to take something away from them or threaten something that they hold dear. That is not my intention in any way, shape, or form, but they're very afraid. And when you act out of fear, it tends not to be very rational.
Right.
And so these responses are not anything I really take very seriously because they're not rational, because they're scared for some reason. And, I tell my kids, like, if somebody is mean to you, like actively mean or threatening to you, whether it's an animal or a person, 99% of the time, they're frightened of you. So back off, give them space. That doesn't mean that we allow them our space.
Right.
That doesn't mean that we don't protect the people that we care about, but we don't have to go after them. It's like they got their own shit to work out. Just leave them be. They'll figure it out. Or they won't, and too fucking bad, I
mean, that's very, very enlightened in a way that I cannot get past my own kind of like.
Well, when I say, I qualify this when I am my best self, right?
right. Well, but what I'm, I guess, curious about then is this just something that you have developed? Is this just a philosophical position that you've been able to develop through your career? Or do you think that was there when you were younger and you were able to kind of weather, I don't want to just say assholes, but like just people who were maybe, maybe assholes is just the right. Were you able, when you were younger, like if someone criticized you when you were a kid or a teenager, like did it wound you, or were you able to just kind of like bat it away?
I mean, I don't remember being on the receiving end of that kind of thing as a kid, It feels like a thing that's been something that's been developed over the years. And, I'm better at it when it's about me than I am when it's about somebody I care about, Somebody's shitty to my husband on the internet, and I'm like, I will find them. I'm putting their name in a fucking list. If I see them at a con, I will skin them and I will hang their flesh on my banner so that everybody that comes down the aisle knows, don't fuck with my boy, like my boy, infantilizing my husband.
No, familiar. Yeah. You sound like my wife. So yeah. No, I understand. But I was curious, like, was this because, okay, if you were younger, were you just never getting criticism? I mean, obviously you said your parents were just like saying you're special all the time, but like from just outside of the kind of parental core, were you like popular and so no one criticized you? Were you an introvert, so no one saw you? Like, what was going on?
I was very extroverted. I was a military kid, so I changed schools every 2 to 3 years. So you develop that ability to make friends quickly. And, I graduated high school in 88, right? So popular has a kind of, but it means like cheerleader, right? I wasn't that. I was a theater kid, right? So I was like one of the weirdos, but
okay.
I was a weirdo that sort of knew everybody, and I moved around really well. School was not hard for me. I was very fortunate that I got good grades without much effort. That actually came to bite me in the ass later, but, I was in like the gifted and talented programs and National Honor Society and all of that stuff, but I didn't have to particularly work at it.
Yep. Very familiar.
And so, yeah.
So did that mean you had to learn a work ethic later on in life because you never developed one when you were a kid?
Yes. And it also meant that, like, in college, when people were like, we're going to go study, I was always like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. Yeah. Like, does that mean read? What the fuck does it mean to what is the verb? Like, how does one study? What the fuck? Someone explain it to me. Like, the only time I ever really understood it. So like when we would go out to study, I would always take my Italian because there were workbooks. And I was like, okay, I know what that is. I can do the workbooks. That's studying, right? But as far as just like, I didn't like, is like, that mean doing the reading assignments? Okay. But that's reading. That's, it was very weird. So I read recently, like 3 years ago, I read, Slunky Aaron's How to Take Smart Notes, I think, which is really a book about a system that a particular German social scientist had for reading and taking notes. And as a result, he was this incredibly prolific writer. He produced paper after paper after paper. It's a personal knowledge management system that's really effective for like scholarly writing. I'm still like, there must be a way to make this work for fiction. I haven't yet, but I did. That book like made it click for me what studying is. Which I was like, well, that would have been fucking handy 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I guess at this point, but thanks. My kids in junior high, no, it's not junior high, middle school, had 3 years of a class called Learning Lab, which was, it's not study hall. Study hall, when we had it, was, this is free time.
Yeah, do what you want.
It was free time. And, but they had a class called Learning Lab, which was an actual class that was a class that taught them like how to organize their notes and prepare for, I know, right?
Wish I had that.
I know. It's like, oh my God, you're so fortunate. You have no idea.
There's so much stuff that I wish had been in a normal curriculum when I was a kid. Like how to keep finances, how to do all like the stuff that as an adult, I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm figuring this out. Yeah, no, nobody ever taught me that stuff. And I'm not very good at it. And I mostly farm it out. And I realized the other day, I have 2 college visits this week with my son who's 17. And wow. Yeah. And I we made this list of things he wants to learn before he leaves the house and things we think he should learn before he leaves the house. Like, we got to get going on some of these. I realized the other day that like, oh, I have taught you nothing about fiscal responsibility. And it was money was such a source of stress when I was growing up that I wanted to protect the kids from having any worries about that. Like, you don't need to be worried about it. Like, we'll make these decisions. You're good.
And now I'm realizing that like, oh shit, in doing that, I've also kept them out of.
Yeah. I think my parents were the same way. Were you shielded from that at all when you were a kid, or was it very obvious that there were money problems?
Oh no, I was not shielded from it in the least. And it fucking sucked. That was a source of tremendous tension.
This is something that I think about a lot. How do you think about a career in the arts? Because I came from a pretty middle class background, and doing this was not a thought that I could. It didn't even enter the like arena of possibilities. It was only later that I was able to kind of like fall into it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, everyone in my family wanted me to be a lawyer. Mm-hmm. It was always, will you like arguing? It's like, no, that means you find me to be unpleasant. Not that. But, and what my degree is in theater.
Interesting.
Yeah, I did theater and improv, and I didn't really intend to be a writer, but in some ways, like being a writer, most of my family that was like judgy about this is all dead. But like I had a cousin, some cousin, I don't even know who it was or how I was related to them, who apparently at some point had wanted to be an actor. And so when I got a theater degree, it was, well, that will help prepare you for law school.
Uh-huh.
And, but don't be like cousin whoever it was who, went off to be an actor and is, now a drug addict or whatever it is. It was just that sort of like
a cautionary tale.
Yeah. But I don't know. It just always felt existential for me. It was just like, I can't do the things that you want me to do. I can't be the things that you want me to be. So
did you try? Like, were you trying to like do something quote unquote normal?
No, except that I had bills to pay. So, I did all kinds of temp jobs where I would work in an office, sometimes for years, and I just fucking hated it. I hated it. I remember talking to my grandmother, and it was like, I want to jump out a window. Like, I don't like it. I don't care about it. And she was like, well, honey, everybody feels that way about their job. That's why they have to pay you, and it was just like, oh, I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just talking with my wife about that, where I was just like, my dad was just like, look, my parents wanted a family, and that was, I think they had existential desires too, but I think that either those got dashed. Like, I know my dad went to school to be an urban planner, and just in the 70s, there was a glut of urban planners. So there were just not enough jobs to go around.
Wow.
He met my mom. They were taking care of my great grandmother.
Yeah.
They're from New York. They didn't want to settle down in New York, but they were, or they did want to be in New York, but they settled down in Pennsylvania because they were taking care, like a family, like all the stuff that just got in the way, and they wanted kids. And so, my dad just gets a job as a business person.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if, I've never really asked him, because I don't think we really have that much of, we're close, but not that. Like, he's an authority figure and not a person to confide in emotionally, right?
Right.
So I don't know if family was paramount, and so he's like, these are sacrifices I will make because I want a family, or just the dream died, right? I don't know what, and therefore family took over. I don't know, but I knew there was something there that like I could tell there was something in their lives that I didn't want. Right. And I think that's what kind of like pushed me, just a vibe at the core kind of pushed me in another direction. I don't know if there was something like that for you, but like you saying that was like the viscerality of that just like hit me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it just, and people would say like, I ended up doing this because I couldn't do anything else, which I always understood. Like, I have no other skills, so this is what I do. And we'll hear that from people sometimes, and that's not true. I'm good at a lot of things. I'm very capable. I can do a whole lot of things, but I'm not suited to making a life out of a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
Or making a living out of all, I do a lot of things. I have to make things with my hands, and I have a lot of interests, sitting in an office, entering people's data into a thing, or typing up letters about lawsuits I don't give a shit about, or whatever. It's just like, I hate this.
Yeah.
I hate it.
It feels like death. It really does. I remember all the temp jobs that I've been working since I was a teenager, supermarkets or whatever, right?
Oh, totally. Video stores. That was
nice.
that
was, I wish I had gotten a blockbuster job.
I scored. I had the video update. I worked a video update for like 4 years.
Oh man.
Yeah. My husband worked at a fucking comic book shop, which is
record store.
I know, right?
Comic shop. And then video store. Those would have been the top. Instead, it was like supermarkets. I worked at an off-track betting place one summer.
Did you really?
It's the second most depressing job. The most depressing job I had was when I just had to take any job I could in New York to make my rent. And I worked for a woman who reminds me of, like, I see the chaos and evil in Trump.
Yeah.
And I can understand that because I worked in an office with someone who was like that. And that was the worst job.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I did post-operative wound care.
What?
Yeah.
At like a hospital?
At a surgery clinic. Yeah. Which was a job that I got because I was a temp receptionist for an orthopedic implant company, and one of the surgeons that was on our board just liked me and hired me. And he was like, "Are you squeamish?" I'm like, "Not especially."
Do you like gauze?
Yes. And I was like, "I feel like you need to be certified to do that." "No, you don't." I'm like, "Okay." So, like, you just got to follow these rules.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Just suction away the blood and you're fine.
Yeah, yeah. There was one time when we were changing, a woman had an abscess, and she had to come in and have the dressing changed every day. And
fun.
And the only time I ever got it was my first day, and it was the only time I ever got like, "Oh, I might faint." I think for like a couple of weeks, I just shadowed him and watched him doing this stuff. And then he was pulling the dressing out, and I swear to God, he like held it up in front of me, like on purpose. And I remember being like, "Whoo, okay." And that was the only time it ever,
Like a schoolyard bully holding a bug in someone's face?
Yeah. It was like, I don't know if it was like hazing or if it was just like, "We're going to break you of that nausea thing real quick." It did. It worked. I never got...
All right. Well,
yeah.
I guess you can't argue with success.
I guess. I mean, it seemed fine to me then. In retrospect, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that there is probably some kind of rule against.
I would assume there is, yes, that you should not.
Yeah. I think there were probably all kinds of rules being broken. I think I should not have been in that job. I think maybe he should not have been. Yeah.
Anything that's a possible disease vector, you probably should not wave in someo's face.
Yeah, exactly.
Casually.
Yeah.
Okay, we're right at the end of the show. And one of the things I'm still, I mean, there's a lot, but the main thing that I'm still thinking about is, how did theater become the thing for you? Was it just, to me, this is the thing. To me, I'm just like, yeah, it's obvious.
Yeah.
But that's me.
Yeah. I don't know. I started in theater in 7th grade.
Like, was it in 7th grade? Was there was it a play? Did you see something where you're like, that feels right? Did you like read a monologue in class?
No, it was the first time I got to choose an elective. And I actually remember, I think it was my dad was like, "What elective do you think you want to take?" And I was like, "Duh." Like, is it not obvious that And
like, were you a dramatic kid then? Were you copying what you saw? Hey, this is what they're doing on MASH. I'm gonna talk like Alan Alda. Oh my God! Wow.
So it's a podcast. You're going to have to tell them what you see, right?
For the listener, Kelly Sue held up her knuckles, and Alan Alda's names are tattooed on, in the same way that like fight and punch might be tattooed on
my knuckle tats.
Wow,
Alan Alda. Yeah.
Now we are both, I think, in the same age range where that could be ironic. But is it like a mantra type thing? Like, I love Alan Alda too.
Yeah. No. I think it's a lot of things. It's like, first and foremost, more than it's a tattoo about Alan Alda, it's a tattoo about my husband because I wanted to make him laugh. And
that's amazing.
It's you've spoken to him. He's incredibly funny, and it's such a win when I can actually make him laugh. And I'm not like my two kids and my husband are people who like, do impressions and talk about they're working on this impression, and they'll sit and like, or my son says something and it doesn't quite land. And then they actually like dissect the comedy, like, like you got to workshop that a little bit, and like, and that's not me. I'm not wired for that. And I'm a bit of a drag to like, I don't watch, like they watch a lot of shows together, especially comedies. And, I would much rather listen to a podcast and do chores than sit with the family and watch a television show, which is just like, well, that's stereotypical and depressing, but it like it is. It's I would much like, my family is watching Yellow Jackets right now. And I'm not actually interested in watching the show at all, but I'm listening to podcasts about it because I want to be able to follow the conversation that the rest of the family is having, but I don't want to sit there and watch the show. I got shit to do. But the reason I started down that tangent was I'm the person who's like, when something funny happens, I'm like, oh, that's funny, instead of laughing. So I'm a fucking drag. So anyway, I had been making this joke that I was going to do this for my, like early on in our marriage, like, what would you get for your knuckle tattoos? And, like we made up a bunch of stuff. And then I said Alan Alda, and he laughed hysterically at that. And then I was like, oh, someday I need to actually. That's a
great follow through on,
yeah. And then, I hemmed and hawed about it because I was like, what'll happen is I'll get the knuckle tattoos, and then we'll find out that, he's some kind of sexual predator or something. And I was like, well, then I'm going to wait until he's dead. And in my way of overthinking everything, I had this interesting mixed feeling about it because I'm at this place in my life where I don't want to celebrate an individual because I think that's a big mistake. Right. And I think culturally, it's a mistake that we fall into an awful lot. I think it suborns bad behavior. I think it also acts as a like caste enforcement, process. I don't know what's the word I want.
Yeah, it's hierarchy enforcing. It's much like there's someone up here that you have to either or follow or whatever.
The special people will come save us. The special people are not going to come save us. We're all special people. No one's coming to save us. We all have to do this.
Yes, I agree.
And this thing that like being a professional artist is this like shamanic job, and like, no, it's not. It's a job. It's a methodology. some people are better at it than other people, but everyone can do it. You can be taught to do these things. It's important that everybody have artistic outlets. Not everybody's going to make a living at it, and that's fine, but that doesn't mean that it's like you're communing with the other world or, nope, it's a job.
Yeah.
And you're not helping, you're not actually elevating it by making it this other thing. You're gatekeeping. And it also acts as a way of allowing for all kinds of bad behavior because they're like, oh, but he's a brilliant artist. So this is just, he's just a shit. It's just, you just have to, no, he's just a shit,
Yeah. So, yeah. My argument for that has always been like, okay, so, I mean, I can't go back and erase this, but I was raised on Woody Allen films. So
right, yeah.
He has somehow, he has very much made at least part of my sense of humor. But the thing I think about a lot is, okay, so we know now that he's a piece of shit, right? And everyone wants, the argument that people will say about him is that, yes, but he made Annie Hall, he made all these other things. And I'm like, okay, but he was a piece of shit. How many people did he kind of destroy in the industry that might have made films as comparable or better than Annie Hall?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or someone, pick your Hollywood predator. Like,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so, for that reason, so I was like, I don't know that I want to get anyone's name tattooed on me, especially like a white male celebrity. I don't,
I will say this, if anyone, I think you pick someone that's pretty safe. Alan Alda.
Well, and it also then just became what won out was ultimately like, this will make Matt laugh. And so that was the big thing. But the other part was, I don't know Alan Alda. It's not about Alan Alda. It's about the way what Alan Alda's masculinity represented in the 70s and how I adored Hawkeye Pierce, who was this incredibly flawed human being who was also brave and honest and a protector, which these are all archetypical masculine traits that meant and mean a lot to me. And so fuck yeah, Alan Alda, and Free to Be You and Me, and just the idea of having, tough guy knuckle tattoos on my fists that say Alan Alda was like, oh yeah, I like all the levels here. So yeah. I'm going with it.
So is that a catalyst? I mean, I stumbled onto it, but like, is it a catalyst to like this, what he's doing, or, theater looks good because of this?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, when we were doing the college hunt for my son, one of the schools we looked up, and I can't remember now where it was. It probably was Ithaca if I had to guess, but I'm not sure. I think Alan Alda was a New Yorker, but I remember this was like 2 weeks ago. So I actually would remember conversations from 15 years ago better than, but we were looking up all of the colleges on his list. And one of the ones we looked up, I was like, Alan Alda went there. And, I was like, my son did not feel like that was a reason to move it over to the short list, but,
sure.
I did. But yeah, I mean, I think Hawkeye Pierce remains not just Hawkeye Pierce. I like Alan Alda did a lot of really cool things. I think Same Time Next Year was one of my first experiences with the idea of people being complicated and it not, this was a film based on a play about a couple that were having an adulterous affair who met up once a year, every year, separate from their spouses to have this other relationship that was just this one time. And they were, very much in love with their, but every year and this, it was just like such a weird, I don't like liars or cheats, and I'm really forgiving of a lot of things, but don't lie to me. And so cheaters' infidelity is such a dishonest act that I have like a really visceral reaction to it. So I was really confused about how I could like these people in this play. Like I liked them. And I understood that they loved their spouses. And that was, I think that it was really confusing and a kind of complexity that I was not comfortable with. And I think maybe I'm still not comfortable with, but but he did, I chalked the fact that I didn't hate him or that character up to his performance, that he had found a way to humanize the choices that this man was making. And so I like him a lot. And then, if you go back and watch MASH, it's certainly not like gender roles are not particularly evolved in that show.
Or the movie, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. But I don't know. Yeah. I thought it was incredibly brave and smart. And it was on for 13 years and they did all like the tone of the show was never stable. Like sometimes the show was very serious and sometimes the show was very much a fixed point sitcom. And it was end of story. I like Alan Alda. So
then the final question then.
Yes.
So theater was the thing. It resonated with you? Like, did you want the attention? Like, what was it? Was it the artistic part of it? Like, what was the thing about theater that felt good to the point where you're like, I'm going to major in this? I mean, did you want to eventually be an actor? Like, what was the path?
I did. But I think I'm really competitive. And so it was just like, I could do that. And, I think it was just that. Like, I got you. Move over. Let me show you.
That's so interesting. Because I'm like, I thought, well, here's the thing. I was like, I wanted to be Bob and David. That's like the shorthand. I wanted to do Mr. Show. I wanted to come to New York. I came way too late. Sketch was already dead.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but that was still kind of in the back of my head. My wife and I sold a show to Comedy Central. Oh God, this is like now 5 or 6 years ago. And she's an actor and a stand-up, so she was going to play herself. And I was just like, well, I can play me. And then she's like, can you? And I had to actually think about it. Like I had like a long dark night of the soul where I'm just like, can I do that? I guess I don't know if my skills lie there.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of be honest with myself about am I? But I say that in the sense that you were just like, boom, this is me. I can do this.
I really did feel that way. And I think I can't say whether I was right or wrong, but we all have a kind of mirror blindness. And I one of the stories that still chills me to the core was there was a guy that I was in a theater company with who was it was a community theater thing in college. He was a lovely human being, but I remember him saying that he knew that this is what he was meant to do. And it was so obvious that this was not what he was meant to do. And I remember being like, oh my God, do I have that is there anything about me that I am that certain of that is just patently false and obvious to everyone? And that was terrifying. But I don't have the temperament is where I ended up. I didn't stop pursuing acting because I didn't get cast. I stopped pursuing acting because until you reach a certain level, actors are treated like shit. And I just didn't have it in me. And I'm also I think, I was really interested I was in a theater company in New York that did environmental theater. I always liked the weird stuff. I was always most interested in we got the city to shut down this street and we are doing a series of one-acts that all take place in the middle of a street. We did a series of one-acts that all took place in a boxing gym. We did a series of one acts that all took place around a hotel pool and in the pool. And I liked that kind of theater. And the way I got involved with that company was they had a reading night where playwrights and screenwriters would bring their scripts in, and whatever actors were there would be assigned roles. You would do a cold reading for a group of other writers, and then there would be a feedback section afterwards for the writers to get thoughts. Not, the actors would usually stay for a little while and give their thoughts, but then mostly they would leave and it was all the writers would talk about everything. I always stayed for the whole thing. I was so interested and I had very strong opinions about the writing. And I think I probably should have known at that time that I was far more interested in that than I was in the actual performance. But I didn't think I had confidence in my ability to read and perform. I didn't think I could create a story. I didn't think I had that in me. And so that took a while to figure out.
Kelly Sue, thank you so much for joining me.
You're so welcome. I'm sorry we've gone over. I am very bad at a short answer.
Honestly, I have like 10 more questions, but I don't want to take up more of your time. Thank you so much.
We'll just have to do it again sometime.
I really do want to hear more about was this the 90s? Was this, that's the thing where I'm like in New York. Was this around like Hal Hartley and the whole like end of the New York downtown art scene, but the Luna Lounge years? I don't,
I moved to New York in 94.
So yeah, these are like,
Were we there at the same time?
No, I can't. Okay. I didn't get there until much, much later. Like, that's the thing. This is your New York. That's the thing that beckoned to me. That's where I wanted to be there. And then that stuff was all dead by the time I got there, like 2010 or so. So anyway, thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. Bye. Bye, oh, 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 bye. Bye, bye, beginnings, good.